Welcome to the Sound of Movement podcast, everyone. Today we're going deeper into nutrition. This whole week we're talking about the 5 laws of a great diet. And today we're going to be deconstructing inflammation, what the difference between acute inflammation and systemic or chronic inflammation is, and how your diet can affect it.
Good morning, everybody. If it's your first time joining us, my name is Yanni Burmeister. Across the table from me is my brother Rad, and next to me is the smartest guy in the world, Phil White, our resident physiotherapist. And behind the mixer, we've got the voice of God, Richard, the sexiest man in the room by far. We are Unity Gym and the Unified Movement System. We're very passionate about turning driven people into athletes. And this week, we are going to do so by leveling up your knowledge and understanding of nutrition. Now, remember, disclaimer, none of us in the room here are dietitians or nutritionists. If you want a personalized diet, I strongly advise that you go to a dietitian. We can refer you to good ones if you would like. But what we do here is give you our experiences and our knowledge and share our knowledge. We have a little bit of skin in the game. We've worked together collaboratively to transform the physiques, bodies, and minds of hundreds of people successfully, and that's what we're sharing. How is everyone?
Good. Yep. I do have an exercise and sports science degree on top of physio, so I've dabbled in nutrition, and it was a real passion point for me for a while there, and I was considering sacking everything else off and going deep dive into nutrition. So I do find it exceptionally interesting, but yeah, definitely not an expert.
I actually can call myself a nutritionist, which is absolutely ridiculous because I did precision nutrition with John Berardi, but it's a certification. It's a 12-month course. It's certainly not what I believe you become a nutritionist by doing. But anyway, all that said, disclaimers aside, we're pretty good at maintaining healthy body compositions and guiding people to do the same. Now, before we get started on the inflammation, especially Richard, you should see his abs. It's ridiculous. Rad too. Rad's got a 10-pack. I don't know how that's even physically possible, but he does literally have like a 10-pack, I think. Maybe an 8-pack. It's very, very good though. It's impressive. Now, before we get started, we're gonna draw a line in the sand and just explain to you the difference between the 2 different types of inflammation that you can experience, because one of them is actually very important, and Phil's going to tell you why. We did talk a little bit about that on Physio Monday, but we're going to just share why in a sec. But first of all, Rad will explain the 2 types of inflammation.
So there's acute inflammation, which most people can relate to. It comes on very quickly and usually resolves itself in 2 weeks or less. And during that process, your body responds to harmful substances, repairs damage to cells, and carries away dead cells. And the symptoms that you can expect with acute inflammation are things like redness, swelling, heat, and pain.
They come from injuries.
Yeah,
like
come
an
from
injury.
Injuries,
you roll
basically.
your ankle,
you get acute inflammation. Chronic inflammation is a slower and generally less severe form of inflammation, but in our opinion, much worse. It happens when your body can't remove the harmful substances or heal an injury. And this means that your body stays in a state of inflammation for several months or even years. And it can even occur when the cause of the inflammation is gone, but the body still stays in an inflammatory state. So some of the symptoms of chronic inflammation can include body pain, constant fatigue and insomnia, depression, anxiety and mood disorders, problems with digestion, weight gain, and frequent infections. So those are all really, really bad things that you don't want.
So the one that I want to sort of, because it has a lot to do with what we're going to talk about today, is that chronic inflammation is very much linked with weight gain, excessive weight gain, and it can make it harder to lose weight, and that's something that we certainly want to talk about today. But also how it affects your ability to perform at high levels. We're going to dig into later on as well. How it affects the muscles, how it affects your energy levels, things like that. But first of all, we want to talk about why acute inflammation is actually really quite important, and we're learning more and more about that on a regular basis. And Phil is, I guess, responsible for that. He's leveling that up, and we touched on this on Monday, so we'll briefly go over this because we won't assume that everyone's listened to Physio Monday's podcast. Why do we now tell people not to take anti-inflammatories after they hurt themselves and experience acute inflammation?
Well, if you think about the body, you've got all these different substances flowing around your body, around your blood, but if you have an injury, there's going to be a very specific point which needs certain materials to repair, to coagulate the area so that you don't get excessive bleeding, you get all the things that remove the substances, just like Rad was talking about. So it's a matter of logistics really in your body. Inflammation is the process in which you direct everything that needs to deal with the injury to the place where it needs to be. So acute inflammation is really useful in basically signaling to the body like, hey, this is an area that needs some to return to homeostasis, which is basically like its regular state, and it's going to need all these different materials, these different things from all around the body, and so it directs all of it to there. So if you're then trying to stop that natural process by using anti-inflammatories or excessively icing, then that can just potentially slow down that healing mechanism. So yeah, the acute side of inflammation, if all else is sort of well, is really important. And just to be clear as well, with inflammation, it's not only just musculoskeletal injuries, but also other like internal injuries and diseases can cause inflammation as well. So.
Yeah, awesome. And look, I think that now that we've got that sort of aside, you do understand that there is a difference between chronic inflammation and acute inflammation. Acute inflammation is essentially when you injure yourself, and it's a very, very healthy process in the body, part of that healing process of getting you back up on your feet.
It's healthy, but often it's painful, and people want to stop it because you do get that redness, you do get that swelling, you get these really objective things that you can see that are often what are causing pain and discomfort for people, and so people try and get rid of that symptom when really the underlying cause is the thing that needs to be sort of fixed
addressed.
From that.
Yeah. Now we're going to talk about how chronic and systemic inflammation can really impact your performance. But before I do, I would like to give a shout out to everybody who's subscribing and listening on our podcast. We have just eclipsed 40,000 listens, and we, to this day, have absolutely no idea how many subscribers we've got because we're trying to get into Apple Podcast. But I want to give some love to the people that are subscribing, and I want to encourage you to subscribe and give us a 5-star review in whatever podcast app you are listening to, because we are going to start installing a software that lets us actually see how many subscribers we've got, and geez, it'll make us feel good, warm and fuzzy inside if we see a good number. I also want to give some love to our YouTube channel. We are starting to roll out some big things on YouTube, so smash up the like button if that excites you. It's just going to be more content, more free content, and it's going to make you all absolute superhumans. And I want to send some love to everyone tuning in live on our UMS Movement Mastermind Facebook group. I can see we got Dave Clark on the stream. I can see we got George Peacock. If you are on the stream, let us know who you are, where you're tuning in from. And I don't really have a question of the day today, so if we think of something, we'll get it up there. So now we want to talk about the fact that your life is going to be filled with lots and lots of amazing things that switch on stress and the stress hormone cortisol. And I want to just quickly frame that, cortisol is actually a very important hormone, and it's been vilified of late because of many factors that we're going to talk about now. But if you think about it logically, cortisol was I guess you could say designed in a way where it was meant to protect us from harm. It switches on that fight or flight mechanism in our bodies that elevate our senses. It helps us to get ourselves out of harm or protect ourselves if need be. The problem now is that there are so many, life used to be pretty simple hundreds, if not thousands of years ago. Thousands of years ago, I'll say. Hundreds of years ago, it was pretty complicated. We used to really just have to protect ourselves and feed ourselves and procreate. That was pretty much it, Nowadays, things are very complicated. There's all these different mechanisms of stress from, your career and work, from family, family units, from financial stress, social media stress, there's all these different things.
Coming from all sides.
It is literally. It is not just about protecting yourself from the pending attack of a saber-toothed tiger that's hiding in the long grass. It is now a matter of protecting your image and your everything, your future, your family, whatever. And this creates a really big problem because stress is it's not meant to stay in our bodies for long periods of time. It's meant to be released, it's meant to serve its purpose, and then it's meant to be cleared out of the body and you can get on with your life. But what is happening right now with people is that, and why stress is sort of being vilified as the demon that it supposedly is because we are on a heightened fight or flight state constantly. Many of us are constantly suffering anxiety and sleep disorders that are associated with that. And, you know, there are all these different mechanisms in our life that you can't really switch off. You can't quit your job. You can't break up with your wife if you're having arguments. You can't immediately change your financial future or health. You don't want to stop exercising. Exercise is also a mechanism of stress. You know, it's stressing the body to force an adaptation. So all of these things are things that you can't really just switch off. Nutrition is a mechanism of stress. Nutrition, if you eat the wrong foods, we spoke about it yesterday, if you eat processed foods, inflammatory foods, foods with very high levels of processed sugar, fats and carbohydrates, it is going to raise your inflammatory state and put your body into an inflammatory state. And so nutrition, when you think about it, is the one mechanism of stress in your life that you can very quickly, quite easily and effectively stop or change, you know. And this is at the point where nutrition becomes a really, really important factor. Yesterday we talked about the first law of a great diet is energy balance, the law of thermodynamics, the first law of physics. You need to balance calories in versus calories out, and you can do that by eating less and exercising more, or reducing the amount of processed foods that don't make you feel satiety and that are empty calories, and alcohol calories, things like that. But today the discussion is about how to reduce systemic inflammation, and the best thing about it is that it's the exact same thing that Rad shared yesterday. What was that, Rad?
What did I share yesterday? That was a little bit of an information overload for me there. What did I share yesterday?
You shared yesterday the first thing that we teach people to reduce calories in.
Yeah, to eat whole foods.
Yeah,
to eat whole foods, because it does. When you when you remove processed foods, you tick a lot of boxes, because processed foods. It's funny because the journey to get healthy for me with nutrition, I remember it being a really long journey, and I remember when I was really confused. I remember when it didn't make sense to me, and I felt like I had to ask questions all the time. And I had a friend that, Aaron, who had been on the journey for a lot longer than me, that I used to call all the time and say, what about this, what about that? And it was so fun. I remember him laughing at me and just saying, just eat this and avoid everything else. And you end up... If you really want to go down this journey, and you come from where I did, which I just ate anything, I just ate heaps of crap, you end up realizing that if you start eating only whole foods, you for me it was like I couldn't eat about 80% or 90% of what I was eating, because I was just eating so much processed foods. It really took care of the chronic inflammation that I had. I was suffering. What really caused me to go down this problem is I had really bad inflammation in my guts, really, really bad. And I was a lean person. You could see my abs, but my stomach was just so bloated. It just stuck out, and I was always lethargic, always.
I also remember you had a really bad bout of tinea.
Yeah, really bad tinea.
Like
I couldn't get rid of it for about 8 or 9 years. Like the symptoms would go away, and then it would just come back, and it was really bad.
Which is an infection, which is, a sign of chronic inflammation.
Yeah, and the jury's out on the research and what has been clinically proven that this stuff comes from and whatever. But, I went to doctors, and many doctors, and they couldn't give me any information on how to reduce the inflammation in my digestive system.
Information
on inflammation. No, they couldn't give me any info on how to reduce.
This is getting confusing.
It just seemed to be something that at least the doctors that I went to, it just was not something that they really recognised. And I've had it out with a few GPs, and they
give you a Band-Aid solution. They give you a cream to put on the outside.
That's right. And just by eating whole foods and getting rid of all that stuff, it reduced the inflammation in my guts. It took about 30 days to really make a noticeable change, where I could see it in the mirror. I could see that my stomach was, it wasn't as bloated, and also that I felt better.
I think this kind of simplified approach is really nice and has a lot of similarities to exercise, where, I guess people can get so hung up on really specific things when it comes to like I feel like anti-inflammatory is kind of one of the biggest like buzzwords in nutrition that I've seen in the last few years, where it's like all these really specific things.
Autophagy.
Yeah, we want to go there.
Gonna say that again. Autophagy.
There's just like certain little, having like turmeric or whatever sort of different berries or roots will be like potently anti-inflammatory. And while that's true, like that doesn't undo, you eating Maccas
That's
for every
the
lunch
biggest
thing.
thing,
And
isn't
so
it?
this sort of like all those things, just like in exercise, where we try and really like make sure people are doing the core basic principles right, like before they try and do all the complicated shit. Like it's exactly the same with nutrition. Like start from a basis of like getting the whole foods right. Don't try and like just put your emotional energy into having a few like things that are not going to have like the biggest impact. So start there, and then if you really want to go down that rabbit hole, like refine later, but don't refine while you've still got this like steaming pile of terrible diet that you're
and that's a really good point that Phil's just made there, and I'll say that just very quickly. I'm going to just very quickly repeat the 5 laws of a great diet, and this relates to any diet, whether you're vegan, whether you're carnivore, whether you're following a modified Mediterranean diet like we usually suggest people do, whether you're a paleo, whatever it is, doesn't matter. These 5 laws stand true. You need to balance energy to optimize your physique or lose weight or gain weight. You need to reduce and minimize systemic inflammation. You need to upregulate healing pathways. Autophagy, cellular autophagy, is one of the many healing pathways. You need to build and cultivate a healthy gut microbiome, which helps to sort of prevent food cravings and all sorts of different stuff. And you need to support your training by and recovery by maximizing muscle protein synthesis. Now, you can do all of those things on many, many diets, but the one thing that stands true, the one and easiest lever to pull, the lowest hanging fruit, is to eliminate processed and refined foods, sugars, fats, carbohydrates. You don't. It's none of them are the enemy. They're all the enemy in combination. And it's very, very simple, and you will get a huge result. But notice that none of the things that I just mentioned that makes up a very important component of a great diet is supplementation. Nutrition supplementation, which is usually what we reach for first. The moment someone goes to a trainer or even a naturopath, and I have so many friends who are naturopaths who prescribe the crap out of nutrition supplements. And I'm telling you right now, and someone who made a lot of money off selling nutrition supplements, Charles Poliquin, who I did a lot of training under, he used to even say, until you get those 5 things right, you don't go near recommending nutrition supplements for someone. Because any nutrition supplements, turmeric tablets and whatever else you want to take, is only going to put the icing on the cake. But it does nothing if you don't get the foundations right, the fundamentals right, the basics right. So I think that's a really great point.
I struggled with that for ages. I was always looking for the next thing, and think what supplements can I take? And you go to health food stores, and they'll sell you $200 worth of shit, and nothing changes. Nothing changes. And health is like, when you really look at health, if you're somebody that's in a bad state of health, to get to where you want to be, the biggest wins are not going to be about what you're about to do, but it's often about what you're willing to give up, especially with nutrition. Like, if you just give up all the shit, you're left with only good food. And if you eat that and start with that and do that for 30 days, then you can maybe start going, okay, what can I add to this?
The big breakthrough moment for me was when Charles Poliquin basically said, if you've got a gut microbiome that's out of whack and your digestive system is screwed, you don't even digest the pills you put in your stomach. Like you just poop them out. And that was, he just said, it's basically just like burning money. It's just a complete waste of money. And so, and we're going to talk about the gut microbiome and healthy digestion on tomorrow's show, or maybe Friday's show, or tomorrow's show we'll do it. Because we're not going live here on Friday. We're going live to our gym group on Friday. But it's really, really important that you guys understand this, because I know how, as Rad just said there, and we've all fallen victim to this, you realize that you're out in a bad state of health, and you join a gym and you start an exercise program and you're doing all the right things, and you might even hook up with a personal trainer, and that personal trainer or whoever it is that's influencing you might be friends, it might be a naturopath, they say, okay, I want you to go and get these supplements, and we recommend nutrition supplements. I take heaps and heaps of nutrition supplements and vitamins and minerals, but I don't bother if I don't have the foundations right or the basics right first. Nothing is going to compare to getting those 5 laws in check of a great diet.
And just quickly on Rad talking about like having to, nutrition is so much about what you're giving up. I think one of the when I went fairly strictly keto, like probably about 4 or 5 years ago, I really noticed it. And then again, when I was just in we had to do lockdown when I went to Western Australia at the end of last year, like your taste buds become so much more sensitive when you stop having such intensely processed food, because you don't have that kind of intense sugar hit, you don't have like really condensed flavors. So then things that like would otherwise be naturally occurring suddenly become that much more intense. I remember that when I was really strictly keto for months and I had a beer and I thought someone was like pranking me, and it was like changed my beer out for a lemonade. It was like the first beer I'd had. I was like, what is this drink? Like, this is not beer. But because you've just had so few carbs, like the sugar sensors in my tongue were just like alert. This is sweet. And so and I really noticed just how, like when I was in isolation, and then I spent the whole time when I was away in WA, where I was just very strict about not having processed food and just like ate whole foods, and then I just couldn't believe how good berries were, man. Like I just was like, oh my god,
blueberries are just like a rainbow on your tongue.
Whereas when you're just when you're so used to having your flavor senses so overloaded by like things that are manufactured to be as like exciting for your taste buds as possible, then like whole foods become a bit dull in comparison. But I think the fact of giving them up, like it doesn't then mean you have to be in this like gulag sort of eating like flavorless porridge. Like you suddenly start to appreciate like the world of flavors that are in the natural world, and I think it's great.
100%. Look, I like there's the things that I just want to. We got a couple more minutes, and I just want to make sure.
I've got a point of just on the information side of things. With Rad talking about sort of advice from doctors again. There's a doctor that I have spent more time probably studying his work than anyone else, which is Dr. Peter Bruckner, who wrote Bruckner and Kahn, which is one of the
great book.
It's the Bible of sports medicine. So he's a real guru in that side of things. He's been Liverpool FC, Sports Doc, the Australian cricket team. He's
got a YouTube channel, right?
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he's got a YouTube channel, but there's certainly you can find plenty of his work online. And what I found really interesting last year at the Sports Medicine Australia conference, when I went to go and see him present, I was all excited for getting some sweet sports medicine knowledge, and he spent the whole time talking about nutrition.
Yep.
And specifically, he was on the lower carb side of things with whole foods. But the little anecdote that I thought I'd bring up was when he had one of his cricketers who had just had just unrelenting sort of knee pain. They'd done every scan, they'd done every injection that they could, and he was basically just in the doldrums of being on the bench, but still kind of good enough on the team. So basically, as Peter was working with the Australian cricket team, he was himself started to kind of get a bit interested in low carb and started eating that way, and lost about 11 kilos, which over the cricket season people started to notice. And so this cricketer asked him hey, what's going on, doc? How are you looking so good? What are you doing? And this guy who'd been injured for months and had put on a bit of weight himself decided hey, maybe I should give what you're doing a go. And basically, long story short, it was back on the team, performing at his best within a few months, where just from changing his diet had fixed his knee problems. Because basically, by getting off this sort of, sometimes athletes kind of just think, I can eat as many calories as I possibly can because I'm exercising all the time, but they're not necessarily good calories. And as soon as he switched that to whole foods and got eating well, his knee pain resolved, he lost his weight, and was back to performing his best. So Yanni's just
so in our fast growth workshop, we have a workbook that we hand out to everybody who does the course with us, and we are making this an online course. It's coming this year. Keep a lookout for it. But in a lot of the notes and a lot of exactly what Phil's just said there, a lot of the information that I've gathered on inflammation, chronic systemic inflammation, is from Dr. Bruckner. And we link in the workbook at the end there, in the suggested viewing and suggested resources section, these 2 videos. And it is well worth what Phil's just said there is absolutely spot on. It's well worth, just even if you just want to watch, just level up and watch those 2 videos. They're both presentations by Dr. Bruckner, and they're both available on YouTube for free. And
that second one was the why low carb one was the same one that he presented at Sportsmed Australia, and it's a excellent talk. He's really engaging as well. Like he's a funny dude.
He's a great speaker, and you don't have to read his book to get the information. Luckily, it's all there for free, but you can read his book if you want. That's about all we got time for today, guys. We're going to bring this one in for a landing. I didn't get a question of the day out, which I'm terribly mortified about, but I'll just give a quick shout out to Lee Clements and Tim Hughes, who have commented in the comments there.
And George Peacock. And
we did already. Let us know, guys, what you think of the nutrition. We really like doing it at this time because it coincides with our 28-day intensive program, and we're directing our new members who are going through that program to watch this series because it does help them a lot. Now, I will remind you that because of the 28-day intensive, we will be doing our live podcast recording streamed to our Unity Gym Tribe group only on Friday. And we're going to be answering their questions on nutrition and things like that. But we will be live again to this group tomorrow, and we're going to talk tomorrow about upregulating your healing pathways and cultivating a healthy gut microbiome. They're 2 very, very important points, something that I've become very passionate about, Rad's become very passionate about, and I'm going to be sharing my experiences on intermittent fasting tomorrow. So if you want to learn a little bit about that, then please join us. It's going to be a great discussion. In the meantime, get yourself ready because we are going to be doing a flash sale this weekend, and it's one of our most popular stretching routines ever. It's going to be available for an absolutely ridiculous discount and only for 72 hours. So get yourself ready if you want to dive on that.
Started it all.
It's the one that started it all. That is absolutely right, and one that we're very, very proud of. So, guys, we will see you tomorrow. Thank you very much, Phil, for sharing your incredible wisdom. Just
And
very
good
quickly,
looks.
we've got Joe Gable here. I'd definitely buy and attend a one-day in-person workshop by you guys on nutrition, dieting, and intermittent fasting. I'd love to put together a better eating program.
I don't think you realise what you're asking for there, Joe, to be in a workshop with Yanni talking about nutrition all day. But
nutrition is something I'm very, very passionate about, and I have to really just make it absolutely clear that I do not consider myself an expert on nutrition, far from. And I have a couple of friends who are really great nutritionists, Phil included, who has a great friend, and we're trying desperately to get a resident dietitian on the show who could come in once a week or once a month, and we could go deeper on nutrition. It would just feel good to have someone who is qualified to give advice like this, because I'm a bit wary, cautious of practicing outside of my scope. So if you would love to get a nutritionist on this show, if you'd like us to get a nutritionist on the show, or a dietitian, I should say, smash the like button. I'm going to do it myself right now. I want to see some love, and we're going to work hard to get that organised this year. COVID sort of put a halt to us getting people on the show last year, and we're still working through that, but we will. Oh, look at those likes coming through. Smash, smash, smash. Smash it up on YouTube as well, guys. Richie's doing such a good job managing our YouTube channel, and he's got such good stuff coming this year. Smash that like button. We will see you all tomorrow. Health is about performance, not just body image.
you better be willing to accept what you're going to have to do to get there.
We'll start focusing on movement goals, strength goals, flexibility goals.
When you nail that skill, that's there forever.
The body image goal doesn't get you that
It's
far.
the consistency and frequency that's going to get you there. It's not the intensity.
There's no shortcuts to mastery and movement. Destination doesn't change overnight, but your direction will.
The gym is not the place to beat up the body that you hate. It's the place to build the body that you love.
We are the gym that teaches people how to move instead of just exercise, because we believe that health is about performance, not just body image.